Hello and good evening. Welcome to your Tuesday evening installment of SPTV Live from me, Apostate Alex, wearing this lovely top that Amy Scobie got me. Thank you very much. SP Meritorious of Valor. So hello to everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining me. God, you guys have come from all over the world. Arkansas, hello. Danielle and Neville are in the chat. How are you guys doing? Lovely to see you here. Thank you for joining. Michelle from Petawawa, Ontario. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and for joining me on this live stream. As the title suggests, Scientology have lied to the police. Now, this might not be a shocker to many of you. It's kind of common knowledge that Scientology lie about the size of their events and the number of people that attend them and so on. But I've been doing some work in the kind of background since the IAS event that happened the other week, looking at the statistics and the pictures we got. And as I said at this event, I'm only just getting started. A little bit of context for those of you just joining. The IAS is the International Association of Scientologists. There was an event that they held at their UK headquarters, St Hill Manor near East Grinstead, earlier this month, and it was the first time they held this event in about 4 years here in the UK. It was advertised as the greatest gathering of Scientologists. It was a big deal, and we've talked a lot about it on this channel and reported about it a lot on Scientologybusiness.com, which is my website where I look at the Scientology operations, finances, legal things, that sort of stuff that's going on in the UK and Europe. Talked a lot about it. Then we went and protested. I held the largest protest in the UK against Scientology for 15 years. It was also the first time there was a protest outside the gates of St Hill for all 3 days of the weekend-long event. Now, I've teased before that I've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes and I'm only just getting started. And this is one of the first things that I'm going to cover that is kind of showing you the direction I'm going in and how this protest wasn't just a one-off event to get our voices heard, but it's a part of a long investigation and piece of work that I'm doing to really look into what Scientology is doing here in the UK. So essentially, Scientology claimed that this greatest gathering of Scientologists was going to attract 6,000 attendees. Now, the number they throw out every year changes in their press releases and so on. They always inflate the figure. We know it's inflated. If you look at Tony Ortega's blog, for example, The Underground Bunker, he has done a lot of in-depth analysis of the pictures of past events where readers have actually counted the individual number of heads in the pictures of people in the venue. And it is often much, much less than what they claim. Now, to give you a bit of context, because this event is so large, they actually hire a tent to host this IES event in it normally happens every year, but it hasn't happened for the last 4 years. So this tent is huge. Now, they claimed this year that there were going to be 6,000 people there. Now, the number they release in their press release and their press statement on their website and such when the time comes may be different. That may not be the number they go with publicly, but this number I was given by the Sussex Police. Now, to organize this protest, I had to do a lot of checks and balances to make sure that the protesters that were taking part were safe, that we were doing things legally, and we didn't want to cause too much disruption to their event on their premises. We wanted to protest peacefully on public land, which we did. But I did a lot of work beforehand to try and make sure that we were kind of within the rules and we were in the right place at the right time. So one of the questions I asked Sussex Police was, how many people were Scientology expecting to show up on their premises for this event? The reason I need to know is to figure out where we can be best placed when these people are going to be arriving, so that we can make sure that we're not in the way of the traffic and blocking the road and that sort of thing. And on the day, the Sussex police officers that were there were looking after us. They were very great and really kind to us, and making sure that we were safe and protected. They told me on the day that Scientology had informed the police they were expecting 6,000 people on the premises. Now, I was there, and I can tell you, as a matter of fact, 6,000 people were not there. I saw all of the cars and the coaches and the vehicles going onto the property. There were not 6,000 people. We knew that that would be an inflated figure. Now, the number that they give has to be less than 7,000, because the premises license that they own at St. Hill Manor, which is the license that allows them to hold large gatherings, only allows them to hold gatherings of up to 7,000. So the first piece of news is a little bit historic before we jump into what happened this year. Now, in 2014, so 9 years ago, Church of Scientology put out this statement after the IAS event. They do this every year. We are expecting the pictures and the page to come up on their website very soon for this year's event. I would imagine in the next month or so. Here's the sort of picture that we see showing all of the attendees. And this is the sort of picture that readers on the underground bunker have counted all the heads and so on. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this year. But this is what is interesting. Now, here it says some 7,500 church members from throughout the world converged on the United Kingdom to mark the 30th anniversary of the IAS. Now, this number is categorically false and proven to be so, because if they had 7,500 people on their premises, they would be in breach of their premises license. Their premises license only allows 7,000 people to gather on their property. If they want more than that, they have to apply for special permission, and there are certain things they have to do ahead of time to make sure that they have the things in place that are needed for a larger gathering. So they are not allowed to have more than 7,000 people on their property. And here it is on the Scientology website that in 2014 they're claiming they had over 7,000 people there. So the question on this one is, did Scientology lie about the number, or did they breach their premises license? Because it has to be one or the other. That's the question I'm raising with this. And I think we all know which one it is. I think it's much more likely that they lied about their number than they actually had 7,500 people there, especially when you consider this next piece of information that I'm going to be reading to you from Scientology Business about this year. Now, this big tent that I was telling you about that they hold the event in, I'm actually not sure if they own the tent or whether they rent it. However, it is supplied by a company called Veldeman. Now, let me bring their website up here for you. Veldeman is a Belgian company. They supply tents and marquees for corporate events, festivals, that sort of thing. And the tent that the Scientology uses is called the TFS. That's the official name of the product. And you can see it here. There's a picture. This isn't the IES tent, but it's the same product being used at a different event. You can see it comes in all sorts of sizes for different purposes. There's even a picture down here. Where is it? Of an aeroplane, which I thought was quite cool. Here we go. Look, there's an aeroplane inside it. So people can hire this tent or they can purchase it. But either way, Veldeman are responsible for constructing it and all of that, because there are lots of rules and regulations about constructing temporary buildings. So leave it to the professionals. That's what they do. Now, this tent is specifiable according to what size the event needs. Now, you can see it has a very particular shape and pattern. So it is constructed by 5-meter panels. Now, it actually says here standard length per 5 meters. So each of these panels that you see here, you've got like one that's a see-through plastic here, and then there's a more opaque one. So each of those panels is 5 meters wide because that's how you can specify it. The height obviously varies according to how wide you want it. The standard width, 10 meters to 60 meters wide. Again, the width of the tent, it comes in 5-meter panels, the minimum being 10 meters, 2 panels. So this is the company that supplies the tent. I contacted Veldeman's press office. Veldeman is owned by an investment firm. They were recently bought out. It is called, where is it? IK Partners is the investment firm. I contacted them asking for confirmation or a statement about their relationship to Scientology. And the statement says as follows. This is what they told me. It's a no comment from us. That was the statement they had for me. They wouldn't confirm or deny that they supplied the tent. Now, any other organization I've ever contacted with regards to an article I'm writing about Scientology, if they have no involvement or relation to Scientology, they have always, 100% of the time, have come back to me and said, no, that's not us, nothing to do with us, not Scientology, we don't deal with that. And when they do that, then that means that they don't get their name published in the article, because I'm not going to write an article that says these people said that it wasn't them. That's not the story. So the fact that they said it's a no comment from us to all of the questions I asked indicates to me that that my suspicions are right. It was also backed up by someone internally who works for the church, an inside source that I have, who confirmed Veldeman are the ones that build the tent. I also have seen a photograph of the tent being constructed, and there is Veldeman branded signage around the side. So 100% provided by this company, and therefore we can 100% confirm that this tent comes in 5-meter panels. So I did a bit of maths. There is a lot of legislation and rules and barriers in the United Kingdom with regard to temporary events and temporary event structures, mostly health and safety. A lot of this comes down to fire safety. The regulations for the capacity of a building are reliant on lots of different figures and calculations, but ultimately it comes down to safe entry and exit. If there's an emergency and everyone needs to evacuate the building, there needs to be clear pathways and clear entrance and exits ways so that people can leave the building in a safe and efficient manner. Now, because of these strict regulations, that means there are very strict numbers of, space per person that is required in order to have the capacity of the building signed off. Now, it is a temporary structure, so it doesn't have to be signed off by the planning department, unless it's up for more than 28 days, which I believe is the case. So they are in breach of that, to the best of my knowledge. But that's not the topic here. What we're talking about is the size of the tent. At the IAS protest, someone or a couple of protesters actually went on a little walk around the perimeter of the St. Hill property along the public footpath and captured some great photos of the tent from the behind. And it gave us a really clear view of how many panels this tent consists of. Now, my first question was, is it smaller than previous years? Because I wondered if they had shrunk it because Scientology is shrinking. And I cross-analyzed the pictures from this year, 2 pictures from the last IS event and 10 years ago and so on. It is the same size. They have not shrunk the size of the tent. But this is the picture here. If I bring it up, you can see I've made some annotations, which we'll go through shortly. But this is the picture, and you can clearly see there are 17 panels that are that this tent is constructed of. That's the length of the structure. The width is 10 panels, right? Obviously, this isn't the best quality because I'm zooming in and I'm streaming, but the link is in the description to the Scientology business article if you want to follow along with this and zoom in and such yourself. But you can see in blue, this is the 5-meter panel, and in orange, this is another 5-meter. So this is how we can calculate that it's 10 panels wide and 17 panels long. Now, this means or actually, here's another picture a Scientologist uploaded to Facebook, which just shows you the sheer size and scale of this tent and what 5 meters looks like in reality. So this means we have an overall dimension of 85 meters long and 50 meters wide. That is the size of the structure. Now, it's important to note that the IAS tent is not just one. There are several temporary structures that are built for this event. You can see one of them here on the right-hand side. There's another one on the left and another one out the back. This is for logistics, operations, catering, security, all that sort of stuff. The big main tent that we're looking at is where they hold the event. That is where they have a stage, a backstage area, and they have all the seating. And the purpose of the tent changes throughout the weekend because there's a big event on Friday where Dave Miscavige is talking to everybody. That's the largest attended event. And then there is the patrons ball, which is a sit down, I think it's a 4 or 5 course meal, Michelin star quality. That's kind of a dining area, smaller event. And then on the Sunday, there's the charity concert or charity gala. It's all happening in the same space. So the capacity of the structure changes throughout the weekend. That is because the legal capacity for a temporary structure is dependent on the layout of how that structure is being used, right? If you have rows of seating, the capacity is calculated in a different way to if you have a banquet style, tables and chairs. So for the purpose of this analysis, I just looked at the Friday event, which is when they have the rows of chairs. This is going to be the most attended event over the whole weekend. This is the largest capacity the tent will have, because that's the most interesting one. The capacity will be smaller for the Saturday and Sunday. So I thought, look, if they're claiming 6,000 people, can you actually get 6,000 people into this tent? In short, the answer is no. So let's have a little look at this, and I'm going to walk through the maths. So if I'm going too quick and you are struggling, please just shout at me in the comments and I will go a bit slower. I won't read it all word for word because I've explained a lot of it already in the preamble. But essentially, 17 panels long, 10 panels wide, that gives us 85 by 50. That means the area of the tent is 4,250 square meters. In the UK, temporary structures and event spaces are highly regulated. We talked about this a second ago. So, according to an inside source, about 7 panels of the structure's length, which is 35 meters, is used for the stage and the backstage area. Now, when working out the capacity of a temporary structure, it's not just the overall size of the building, it's the size of the area used for the event, for hosting people. So when working out the legal capacity, it's not like, okay, cool, it's 85 meters by 50 meters. No, because a lot of that structure is being used for the stage and the little backstage area and so on. So someone inside told me that it was about 7 panels that's used for the stage and is used for the backstage area. And this can be confirmed by looking at this picture that somebody took from the stage looking out towards the back of the tent. This picture was taken this year of this year's event, and obviously it's being taken from the stage. So you can see how many panels are available. And I know it's not the best quality, but I've marked them out on here and you can count them right 1 through 10. And then you can see in the top left here, there's an 11th panel. And that means ahead of the stage, 10 or 11 panels are being used for the event space, which gives us 6 or 7 panels used for the stage, which lines up with what my inside source says. So if we use that analysis, we can calculate the overall space, which means, let me just read through this. In the fire safety guidance of places of large assembly, the UK government sets out clear requirements for escape routes. A width of 1 meter can accommodate 200 people, with an additional 75 millimeters needed for every 15 people on top of that. So for a venue with a capacity of 3,000, there must be at least 16 meters of clear space across the entire width. So this is what I was talking about, event evacuation routes. Now you can see here it's not very clear, but you have one block of seating here in the center, and then there's an aisle going up along here, and there's an aisle going along here behind the symbol, and then there's also a perimeter. You can see it better in other pictures that I don't have here, but there's also another sort of area along the side and along the back. So what that means is if you have 3,000 people in this tent, across the entire width of the tent, 16 meters needs to be reserved for clear emergency escape routes. Now, these aisles would be counted for that. But what that does mean is you can then work out what space is left afterwards for the seating. So subtracting 16 meters from the tent's overall width leaves us with an event space measuring 34 meters in width. Now, taking into account the seven panels we just talked about for the staging, that gives us an overall length of 50 meters. So we have a space that's used for event hosting the people that's 50 meters long and 34 meters wide, which means the maximum total area available for seating is 1,700 square meters. Now, one thing to note, I am being very generous in my calculations here. I'm actually giving Scientology the benefit, and the number in reality that I've come up with, the number in reality is probably actually smaller, because of that space, that's 1,700 square meters that's used for seating. You can see in pictures, a lot of that space is taken up by the production desk, the sound, the lighting. There's also two different levels. There's a platform. So there's an area that's reserved for stairs. So that 1,700 square meters is the total space that is used for seating, including those other areas that are used for production and such, which wouldn't count towards the capacity of the venue. Now, because I can't 100% figure out and measure the size of those stairways and the production table and booth and sound and all of this, I can see it in the pictures, but I can't accurately measure exactly how large they are from the photographs and not being there in person inside the tent. So I've just included that in the calculation. In reality, those areas would be taken away from the calculation. So this is giving Scientology the benefit, not the benefit of the doubt, but this is working in their favor. It's giving them a higher capacity than what it would actually be in real life. So that's what we talk about here. If we look at the government's technical standards for places of large assembly, which, by the way, guys, is one of the dullest documents I've ever looked at. This is it, right? It's from His Majesty's government, this fire safety risk assessment. I just want you to all understand what I've been trawling through over the last few days. This is the health and safety guidelines, working out the capacity and fire risks of event spaces. It is very dull and very boring, and I had to read a lot of this. So in that document, which gives us the guidelines set by the government in terms of space, it says that you should have 0.5 meters squared per person when calculating the capacity of a seated venue. So this is the calculation. If you have a seat, if you have one person, they need 0.5, half a meter squared designated to them, total in the event space. Now, obviously, a chair may not measure that. It might be smaller, it might be larger. But in terms of the legal maximum number of people allowed into the building, you have to, it's 0.5 meters squared times however many people, or however many of those you can fit in the area of the building. So with a maximum seating area of 1,700 meters squared, that means in order to be compliant with health and safety regulations, the IAS tent could not have held more than 3,400 seats. Now, as I said earlier, considering the allowance of the production booth and the stairway and all of this other stuff, the actual capacity is more likely to have been closer to the 3,000 mark. Now, this is the legal capacity. The tent cannot hold more than 3,400 people, as per the calculations on Scientology Business. Now, I know that's a lot of numbers I've just thrown at you. I hope I've explained it in a way that you kind of followed and kind of understood. But that's illegal. You can't fit more than that. You probably could fit more people than that in the building, but in terms of legally, they're not allowed to. They wouldn't get it signed off by the fire regs. So they can't have more than 3,400 people. So the fact that they told the police they were expecting 6,000 people instantly indicates that they have lied to the police, because that's simply not possible according to the regulations and the capacity of the venue they're using. Now, it's possible they could have justified having more people, a bigger capacity by using different rooms. There's the Great Hall at St. Hill in the castle. There are other areas they could use. An insider who was actually there told me actually that people who arrived late to the IS event, even though the tent wasn't full up, because they didn't want to interrupt David Miscavige's speech, they closed the doors and any latecomers were escorted to a separate room where they would watch a live feed on a TV screen of the event. So there were multiple areas used for viewing the event, but there's no way they can sit an additional 3,000 people on that property to watch the event outside of the tent. They just don't have that capacity. So when Scientology told Sussex Police they're expecting 6,000 people, that was a lie. Simply and truly, look at the numbers. They cannot legally fit 6,000 people on that property. They would need a larger tent, or they would need multiple tents of the same size. Now, couple this with the Scientology website that claimed they had 7,500 people a couple of years or 9 years ago. You can tell they are lying to the authorities about how many people are attending this event. Now, I was there in person, and I estimate about 80% of the attendees of this event walked past us protesters in order to gain access to the property. There was a massive issue with traffic management and parking on site on the day because of a number of factors. And essentially, there was chaos on the roads. They ran out of space in the car park they were meant to be using. They thought we as protesters were going to be somewhere else. So when we weren't where they thought we were, massive flap for them, because all the Scientologists had to park in the rugby car park, which is just down the road, and they all had to walk past us. I estimate about 80% of the Scientologists attending the event walked past us, which gave us a good idea of roughly how many people. Now, we weren't standing there counting the 1, 2, 3. This is just an estimation. But I work in events. I know what crowds look like. I do marketing as a job, and I spend a lot of time at large scale events. And I can, from my professional expertise, tell you that there were not 3,000 people there. I would estimate 1,500, maybe 2,000 maximum, giving them the benefit of the doubt. So either they told the police they were expecting 6,000 and they just had a really bad turnout, and not even half the people who confirmed that they were going actually showed up, which is also possible. But also that number of 6,000 is a lie. They couldn't get more than 3,400 people. So even if the event was full, if they filled every single seat as per the legal capacity, it still is half what they were telling the police they were expecting. Now, what's interesting as well is when you look at the historic data. I used to work at the London Church of Scientology, and when I was on staff, they used to send coaches from London down to St. Hill to take the staff and the parishioners down to St. Hill to attend the event. Now, I remember when I was on staff, there were maybe 2 or 3 coaches full of people that we would send down. This year, there was 1 coach from London. I know that it was the London coach because I recognized a lot of people on the coach, and there was only 1. And even that wasn't filled up. It was probably a 50-seater or so, maybe 56. But regardless, it wasn't even half full. So the fact that an org 10 years ago that had 3 coaches now only has 1 and it's less than half full indicates to me Scientology is shrinking. They have less people going to this event than they did 10 years ago. Scientology is on the way out. It is shrinking like never before, but that hasn't stopped them promoting how great and wonderful and how large this event is for Scientology. They've promoted it as the greatest gathering, and there's been a lot of promo on all of the orgs around the world's social media profiles about how important and how large this event was. Now, it will be interesting to see what number they come out with in their press release when they do eventually release that. But it's also possible that this has caused enough of a flap, and now that they've been called out on their numbers, they just omit the number completely. They could just submit a press release that says thousands of Scientologists gathered. They may not even give a number. But either way, it'll be interesting to see. So that's the news. Scientology lied to the police. It's lying on its website about the number of attendees. We know Scientology lies to its parishioners. We know that Scientology says, we've got 1.6 million followers in the world, or whatever the number is that they give. We know that they lie to parishioners to try and get them amped up, and they live in this bubble world. But I would have thought Scientology would have the brains, the intelligence to not lie to the authorities, because they want to safe point. They want to make sure that they have good relationships with the local authorities. They want to make sure that they're not putting themselves in a place of risk. By telling the authorities they're expecting one number, by publicizing on the website they're expecting another, and by the legal capacity of the venue being even smaller, being a third number, this creates a lot of confusion and shows that Scientology are not trustworthy when it comes to supplying numbers and estimating how many people are on site. Now, this is a concern, because how can the local authorities be confident Scientology have put all of the precautions in place to ensure the safety of everybody attending this event, when they can't even give an accurate number of how many people they think are going to be on the premises? You cannot plan for the safety, for if an emergency happens, exit routes, all this sort of stuff. That is all very dependent on how many people are going to be there in the building. And if you don't even know how many people are there, you can't evacuate them carefully. If everyone leaves the building in a rush, how do you know if there's not someone still left in the building, if it's on fire or something, if you don't know how many people are there? This is a major concern, and it is absolutely something that will be raised with the Mid Sussex District Council ahead of next year. Of, look, we are concerned about the safety of these people. They can't give an accurate number of how many people are there. How can they ensure that these people are being looked after and are safe? All right, that's the news. Let's do some Q&A, guys. Thank you so much for bearing with me as I ramble on. Fangirl Jen, the only important thing is they lied to the police. Do the police know that they lie? That's the biggest thing, is that the police know they are lying liars. Absolutely. Great question. Now, look, it is not illegal to lie to the police in the United Kingdom unless you've been arrested, or you're testifying, you're under oath, or it's an investigation or something. There is nothing illegal about Scientology telling the police we're expecting this number of people, and actually that being a lie. It's also a civil matter, right? The police aren't going to go in and arrest Scientology for safety issues. It's civil. But they do have a duty of care, and the police do want to make sure that people attending the event are safe. So it is a matter of concern for sure. And it is something that will definitely be raised. But in terms of your question of, do the police know that they are lying liars? I'm going to give you a little story very briefly about something that happened at the event. When we were there protesting outside, the Scientology, so we were stationed all along the road, right by the main entrance, and the police were at this end, and the gate is at this end. So the police were there mostly for us. I requested them to be there to look after us and make sure that we are being, safe and careful and all of this, and the traffic wasn't going to come and hit us. So the police were there at my request, and they did do a really good job of keeping us safe. They were standing here. The entrance over here is where all the Scientology OSA people were standing. Scientology also called the police on the phone and said, "Oh, they're harassing us. They're shouting obscenities. They're being really rude. They're being mean to us. It's harassment." And the police instantly just walked along down to the gate, and they said, "What's going on?" And the Scientology said that, they're saying this, they're shouting this, they're being really rude. And the police watched us for a while and said, "No, they're not. They're shouting messages of compassion. They're saying, if you want to leave, we'll help you. Scientology's got to go. Did you know that Dave Miscavige is a named defendant in a number of lawsuits alleging human trafficking and harassment and intimidation and this sort of thing?" We were saying these things matter of fact, and we were also giving people compliments, saying, "We love your dress. What a great suit. We hope you have a good event. If you choose to leave, we're here to help you. The Aftermath Foundation will help." We were giving positive messages of reinforcement, and the police realized that, and the police just brushed it off and said, of course, they are just lying. They're not harassing or abusing you. So in answer to your question, do the police know that they're lying? I think it was clear by their actions on the day. Nermin Odkin, in 2023, no one should be locked in a room to confess crimes they did not commit. Exactly. That is what happened to me. It wasn't this year, but when I was in Scientology, it's what happened. And it is what is probably happening right now in the Scientology org somewhere in the world, because this is the way Scientology operates, and it is disgusting and it needs to stop. Mary Gabriel Southers, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for your integrity, Alex. Keep them honest. Exactly. This is the thing. I'm not accusing them of anything. I'm not shouting hatred or saying anything that's untrue. I'm just looking at the statistics and asking the question, did they lie about the number of people that were there, or are they in breach of their premises license? Or is it a complete misunderstanding? I think it's very, very clear that they lied, because the building cannot hold that number of people. It's a simple thing. Why don't they just say this is how many people were there? Like, why don't the only reason they don't give the real number is because it shows how small Scientology really is, because they want Scientology to be seen as the fastest growing religion in the world. So if they come out and say, yeah, we had 1,500 people there, and they'd advertised it as the greatest gathering, it's a little bit embarrassing for them. But is it not more embarrassing for these lies to be so easily exposed by simple maths and looking up the regulations? What makes them look worse? I think it makes them look better to say, yeah, you know what? We've shrunk. We had this many people there, but at least we're honest. But of course, they're not going to do that, because Scientology is not an honest organization in the way that they treat their members and what they say to Scientologists, parishioners, and how they deal with the public and what they say in the public image. Mark, the Dorset SP. Hey, buddy, how's it going? Thank you for the super chat. It's interesting to see if they have complied with the 28-day temporary structure requirements. The 28-day includes both setup and takedown of the tent and all other structures. Exactly. And I can confirm that pretty much every year, Scientology do not comply with this regulation. For those of you who don't understand this, very briefly, if a temporary structure is in place for longer than 28 days, they have to apply for planning permission and have to get approval from the council to put it up and take it down and so on. Scientology do not have planning permission for this temporary structure. You can see all of the planning applications and approvals on the Sussex Council website. There is no such application or approval for a structure to be built on the premises for this temporary event, which means they have to keep within the 28 days. I can also confirm that pretty much every other year they do not comply with this. Every year they start building the tent, maybe 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. It is then up for the event, and then it takes several weeks afterwards to take it down. And one really key thing that gives it away is in the beginning of December or the end of November, Scientology hold a fireworks night and a Christmas light switch on event at the manor. It's meant to be a community event. They have all the lights up in the trees, and it's like, everyone come and we'll turn the lights on. We get the mayor down. It's a nice family fun day. You don't have to be a Scientologist. It's a community thing. This happens usually the first week of December or the last week of November. And you can see in pictures of this event in years gone by that the structure of the tent is still there behind the castle. Now, the IAS event normally happens at the beginning of October. This year, it happened a bit later. It's the beginning of November. But if the event happens at the beginning of October and it's still there at the end of November, considering it has to be built a week or 2 or 3 or 4 even before the event starts, means the structure is there for 2 months, if not more, which is definitely over the 28 days. So they definitely have not complied with this in the past. And I'm pretty sure I need to go and do a recce and double check that it's still up there. But if the tent is still there or the structure is still there today, they are in breach of that license, of that planning permission requirement. Susan Paris, thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate that. It's nice of you to support the channel. Thank you so much. Rock it out with Kim D. High. Question: what is the approximate headcount of active Scientologists? Fantastic question. Now, obviously, Scientology claim that they have millions of followers around the world. They're the fastest growing religion on the planet. In reality, the number is much smaller. And there's a number of ways you can work it out. But overall, the general consensus among the ex-Scientology community and the Scientology critics is that the total number of Scientologists on the planet is probably in the region of 30 to 40,000. much smaller than people think, but those 30 or 40,000 people have a big say and a big amount of money with which they control a lot of people's lives. That's the number most people think. You can look up census data in the UK to see that there are only 2,000 or so Scientologists in the UK as per the last census. Yeah, it's not very much at all, but people think it's more than it is, but they have lots of money, which is what's important. Danielle Chamberlain, liar, liar, pants on fire. Exactly. Well said. Couldn't have said it better myself. Donna Rose, thank you for the super chat. What about that pathetic slap on the wrist for not registering their event? Officials paid off. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that I'm only just getting started, and this process after the event is where all the fun, exciting stuff is happening. This is the first in a series of investigative journalism that I'm working on with regard to Scientology's activities here in the UK. What Donna here is referring to is they had to give 6 weeks notice to the council ahead of the event so that certain health and safety requirements could be met. That's a condition of their license. Breaching a premises license condition is considered a serious offence in the UK. It is finable by £20,000 and or a 6-month imprisonment. Now, they only announced the event 4 weeks before the event actually happened. I was the one that informed the council the event was going on because I was asking about, what the plans were in place, and I'm going to do a protest against this event. And they said, what event? So 4 weeks before the event, council had no idea, which means they're in breach of the license. I reported it, and the council came back and said that they just said, we wrote them a strongly worded email and told them off. Slap on the wrist is what they got. Officials paid off is questionable. Now, it's going to be hard to prove, but what I can reveal is that the mayor of East Grinstead received a check at the Scientology charity concert on the Sunday for, I believe it was £10,000. This was for the mayor's charity fund. Now, as much as this isn't exactly paying off the mayor or paying off the council, it is a similar kind of way that's kind of seen as slightly more okay ethically. We'll donate to your charity if you help us out. That's the deal that they have going on. They have registered, they have donated to the Mayor's Fund previously. So this is, again, one of the things I'm looking into over the coming weeks, and stay tuned because there's a lot more. And I'm currently awaiting a number of responses to Freedom of Information Act requests that I've sent to try and gather more information about Scientology's activities over the last couple of months. Hi, Mark and Janice. Hi, Alex. Our Scientology stories, peeling the onion. Mark and Janice, go and check them out. They are great. They're a fellow SPTV creator. Hi, Alex. Late to the party. Pip, pip, cheerio, Mark. Thank you for joining in, Mark. Free Xenia Project. Question. I'm from America. What exactly do you mean it's not illegal to lie to the cops? I would like this clarified. Absolutely. I can clarify that for you. So is it a crime to, this is what the law says. I was actually looking at this earlier. If you lie about something that isn't trivial while giving testimony, you can be charged with perjury. When dealing with the police in a criminal investigation, you typically aren't under oath, so you cannot commit perjury by lying to them. It's possible you've committed another crime. You can make a false report, which is a crime. It's a crime to lie to the police by wasting police time, for example. But if the police are just coming and asking, how many people are you expecting at your event? And you say 6,000, and in reality it's 2,000, that's not a criminal offense as far as I'm aware. And it's also a civil matter. They're not going to arrest someone for giving them an incorrect statistic, because the reason they're asking for that number is so that they can ensure the safety of people entering and exiting the property and all of that sort of stuff. So that's what I mean. I hope that clarified your question, Free Senior Project. Thank you for asking. Love it. Question. Has her hate harassment, I like that word, gone up since protest? Fair game stuff. Absolutely. I've had private investigators following me. I have had thousands of attempts to hack into my Scientology business website. If you look at the statistics, it's actually quite funny. The number of attempts to log in to the back end of my website were going, the Guardian article came out announcing the protest, and they shot up like this, and then they stayed there for a couple of days, and then the IAS event happened and they dropped way back down again. And for the 3 or 4 days the IAS event was happening, and then a day or two afterwards, they remained at this low level. And then they suddenly shot back up again. Now, I can't conclusively determine that it's a fact that that attack is coming from the Church of Scientology, but I do find it fascinating that the attempts to hack into the website have the number of attempts has changed according to my activities in the anti-Scientology sphere. The protest was announced. Attacks went up. The IS event happened, meaning OSA and everyone who would be directing such an attack would be busy on site at St. Hill dealing with the event in person and therefore not able to direct such an attack. The attacks went down. And as soon as everything returns back to normal and all these people fly back to the States and go back to their normal day jobs in the Office of Special Affairs, the attack goes back up again. That's my theory. But yeah, fair game is definitely happening. Among other things that I am sure I'll share in due course. Okie dokie. Maya, aka Alice in Art Supply Horderland, can even SPs go to the Christmas light event? Now, that is a very good question. I unfortunately cannot go this weekend. I was going to plan a small little protest outside the Christmas light event. It's happening this Saturday at St. Hill. Unfortunately, I can't go because I've got other commitments, but it's a very good question. There is an Eventbrite link that is up. You can register to attend. It is advertised as a community event. The mayor of East Grinstead will be there to turn the Christmas lights on. It is publicized as an event, not just for Scientologists. They want locals to go because they want to show how great Scientology is and how good a neighbor they are. So look, as a suppressive person, they do have a right to deny people access to their property. It is a private property, even if it is an event open to the public. But ultimately, it does stand the question of their buildings being registered places of public worship. And there is a question mark there whether suppressive people, whether they have a right to actually deny someone access to a community event like that. So it's a good question. But if anyone does want to attend and does want to go and show some support for the SPs out there, you know, it's happening on Saturday, St. Hill Manor. I'm not going to be there. I'm not organizing a protest, but that doesn't mean you guys can't go if you want to as well. Guys, thank you. Oh, that's actually, before I go, Wise Angel UK is the mayor of Scientologist. As far as I'm aware, no, but he is supportive of Scientology and takes big checks for his charity from the Church of Scientology and has gone to a number of events held by the church at their St. Hill property. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this fascinating account and analysis of Scientology's lies. This story continues in just a couple of hours. What is it? 11 o'clock now. So 12, what, in 2 hours, I will be returning. I'll be doing another live with Karen de la Carriere, Mitch Brisker, and Jeffrey Augustine, where we're going to be looking at Scientology's recruitment tactics and how it uses lies to try and get people in and lure people in to Scientology. So this theme of Scientology lies continues. That's it for now, but join me in 2 hours and I will see you then. Thank you so much.